You are listening to the Critical Mass Radio Show, Orange County's business talk show, focused on exploring topics of interest to CEOs who are leading middle market companies. With your host, Richard Franzi.
Hello and welcome to Orange County's longest running business talk show. I am your host, Rick Franzi, and we have a great show planned for you today. Why do you ask? Because Ben Olbon is our guest, and he's a mental strength coach as well as a leadership development coach. Ben, welcome to the program.
Rick, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited. Can't wait to share the things that I'm doing with you.
I'm interested as well. So, on this show, we talk to Orange County entrepreneurs about the entrepreneurial journey and your latest entrepreneurial venture. Been in business with Outcome Elite going on 2 years, a little over 1 year, approaching 2 years. I'm wondering, Ben, what was your motivation to start this firm?
Yeah, amazing question. And the answer comes from so many different directions when I think about where or how I want to tell it, right? But the Outcome Elite story really started years and years ago, right? When I was placed in front of the right people who were able to give me leadership lessons, where I was placed in situations where I had a chance to succeed, where I was placed in situations where I failed, right? You just continue just this learning process. But I started Outcome Elite because I realized that I was the ideal client. And what I mean by that is that as a young person, as a young student athlete, I suffered from fear, anxiety, self-doubt, stress, overwhelm, right? And the catalyst, Rick, that really lit the match to make Outcome Elite go from just an idea to, a real live thing was when I was working with my personal executive coach about 24 months ago, right? I was a regional director for a pharmaceutical company, and I had the privilege to have a executive coach work with me to help me grow and learn. And she presented me with the most profound question that anybody's asked me to date in my life. And she's like, Ben, tell me about a time in your life when you were the most genuine, most authentic version of yourself. And I was stumped, and I was dumbfounded because I didn't have an answer, right? So eventually I came to a point where I was like, hey, you know what, Michelle, her name is Michelle Krebs. I was like, I was the most authentic version of myself when I was coaching young kids in Pop Warner football years ago, right? I had an opportunity to step onto the field and coach and yell and scream and cry and be intense and be emotional. And the parents and the coaches and the kids all loved me and accepted me for who I was, right? And that question for me started to help me realize and get on my own journey of self-awareness, right? And this self-awareness is something that I've learned that is, hey, are you being true to yourself? Are you being authentic? Or is the life that you've created where I'm living some sort of character or avatar, right? So starting Outcome Elite was the result of me aligning and creating and building a life and being able to have a positive impact on athletes and young people that aligned with who I really thought I was or who I am, not who I had built myself up to be up to that point in my life.
Well, that's a powerful way to kick off the show. I have to ask, because you're an entrepreneur, have you had any major or minor pivots in the business model since you launched a year and 8 months ago?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's daily because you're talking to a guy, right, who left college, went to the Marine Corps, and then left the Marine Corps and went right into a corporate W-2 type position, right? So when I'm thinking about how I do this, I'm calling my buddies and some of my other friends like, do I create this LLC? What do I do? Do I run this out of my checking account? I mean, I started from not knowing anything, right? Absolutely nothing. So there's been major and minor pivots all over the place. And I've come to a point where I enjoy them because it's a learning process. But, the first thing that I learned in the model is that because I'm providing a service, right? Is even though I got 20 years, Rick, in financial sales, pharmaceutical and medical sales, I had to go back and reteach myself and relearn like selling and marketing skills. right? So I've got this new service that I'm excited about, and I want to make an impact in people's lives. And I learned in the first few months, I was doing the exact opposite of what I teach and tell and have mentored other people to do in a sales environment, which is don't vomit all over the customer. Don't just like talk all over them. Learn to ask some questions and learn to relax and take in what they're saying. So the pivot that I made that has worked so well after kind of realizing that I was making that mistake is that I started to change sort of the onboarding or the vetting process to identify clients who were very interested and understood what Outcome Elite was offering in terms of leadership development, helping student athletes with anxiety, fear, overwhelm, right? And it started with two things, or it kind of came to two things. Number one, I introduced an onboarding questionnaire, right? So instead of just having a blind discovery call or consultation call with prospective clients, I had them fill out this sheet, sort of articulating what their vision was, what they were seeing as a sponsor or a parent of a possible student athlete client, right? What fears they had, right? And to this date, everybody that has gone through that process thus far has ended up signing up as a client. Whereas before, I was getting some level of frustration with being ghosted by prospective clients where I thought we had a great discovery call, right? I'm like, I hang up the call. That was great. Fantastic. Never hear from them again, right?
Right.
So just implementing some steps to create some investment and some engagement has been a pivot for my business model, right? And then the second thing, Rick, is, oh my gosh, social media is great, but it's not that great, right? So I just kind of expected sometimes that I would just put stuff online and post it, and athletes were just going to come in droves towards me, right? And I not quickly, maybe after months, realized that like that's just not the case, right? And so it's a combination where social media is part of, spreading the message, but at the end of the day, it just takes time with meeting people, getting referrals, sharing them with what I do, and not just resting everything on social media and thinking that's the most fruitful revenue generating action, right? Because it's not, right?
And it can take a lot of time. It can
I mean, I've
require a
learned a
lot
lot
of
about
care.
hashtagging, right?
Okay, there you go. So Ben, let's talk a little bit more about Outcome Elite. So what I'd like you to do for the audience is help them to understand, what do you do?
Mhm.
Who do you do it for?
Right.
And why do they pick Outcome Elite as the right place to kind of go for this service, as you said?
Right. So yeah, I'll take it in that order for sure. Thank you for setting
Okay.
that up, Rick. So like,
All right.
so what I found is, Rick, is that student athletes are just suffering from fear and doubt that parents, guidance counselors, coaches, leaders, we're just not aware of, right? We're not aware of what's going on. And that's indicative in some of the things you might see on an individual level or even a national level. Just for examples, there's been a recent rash of articles nationally and everything about student athletes who are attaching their value to their performance on the field or on the court. And when that doesn't go well, they're going so far as to having suicidal ideations, or in the worst case scenario, actually committing suicide, right? Locally, my son's high school football team a few years ago also fell into that category. So even though we may think things are going fine, things are happening that we're just not aware of, right? And Outcome Elite is part of the new process, our new mentality in this culture to normalize talking about these things, right? Fear, stress, overwhelm, anxiety, right? So Outcome Elite is designed for student athletes because that aligns with my background and my coaching, but I also help people who are not athletes, for example, right? It may be a young person, a teenager who's having a problem, with motivation, who's having a problem with, they're just lethargic about life. And the parents think there's so much room for potential, right? And they have this window of opportunity. I want to help them, right? So Outcome Elite is part of the process through my Velocity coaching program that helps unlock that potential, right? So the velocity coaching program that I referred to, Rick, has 3 stages, right? It's do, D-U-E. The first is discard, right? We help student athletes structure their thoughts and emotions so they can get rid of limiting beliefs, right? A limiting belief being, I'm not good enough for that. I'm not funny enough, or I'm not attractive enough. An interpretation like, oh, they're not going to like me, or so and so is mad at me because they didn't answer my text in 10 minutes, right? So we got to discard some of those blocks that are stopping people from being happy and fulfilled. The next step is, excuse me, the next step is unlocking creativity, unlocking choice, unlocking opportunity, right? So, for example, I might be working with a young kid who wants to go out for basketball, right? And he goes in one day, he's like, well, I didn't really like those kids. I don't feel like, they were liking me. And he doesn't go back, right? What if they don't like me, coach? What if they don't like me, Ben? And so we have to sort of flip that on its side. It's like, what if they turn out to be your best friends ever?
Mm.
What if it turns out to be the greatest experience ever? So we learn to retrain defaulting into that fear and going into an opportunity to choose freedom, to choose gratitude, to choose choice, right? And the last part of the Velocity coaching program is executing, right? Now we have a goal, whether it's short term or long term. We have a desire, we have a dream, right? How do we start to take responsibility for my own feelings, right? How do I start to take accountability that I'm responsible for my own happiness, right? And not be a victim of circumstance, right? How do I train myself to be thankful for all the things in my life and think about those things instead of the things I don't have? How do I execute a plan that's going to get me where I want to go, right? If I want to play Division I sport, these are the things I need to do, right? If I need to overcome some sort of social or academic fear, right? These are the steps we need to take together as partners, right? And last but not least, the most important part, Rick, of Outcome Elite is it is a completely judgment-free zone, right? Right. And that's one of the benefits to the clients and the parents, or the sponsors in that case, right? Because sometimes if I go back to, hey, my kid is fine, or this isn't a problem, the analogy that I use is because sometimes as a parent or a sponsor, you're like the HR department, right? You're not getting the whole truth, or you're not getting the full story. And even if you say, hey, I want to talk to you, the other person may think they're in trouble, right? Like, hey, HR needs to talk to you. Whoa, that ain't good, right?
Right.
So, an independent third party also takes the pressure off the parents, right? So they don't have to worry about injuring the status quo of the relationship, or being hard or nagging or whatever. I'm a judgment-free listener, right? I'm here to listen. I'm here to validate, and I'm here to let you know that your feelings are correct. They're true. They're right. They're authentic, right? And you have all the potential in the world to be who or what you want to be.
It's interesting, Ben, because sports are supposed to be a release, right? And it's supposed to be fun. It's an activity. But as you say, having worked with these student athletes, the pressure to perform, it's not only internal. There's a lot of external pressure on these kids as well. Parents, maybe intentionally or unintentionally, are putting a lot of pressure on them, as well as maybe their friends and colleagues and others. There's such a desire, especially here in Southern California, to see your kids excel at whatever sport they happen to have an aptitude in. I can only imagine how that can turn sideways for kids who either aren't living up to their parents' expectations or maybe even their own. So how do you find how do you get children? What age group do you work? Let me start there. What age group are you working with?
Yeah. So I work from kids to as young as 8 or 9, right?
Okay.
8 or 9 and all the way up to young 20s, right?
Okay.
So, and those are vastly different ages, and I'll put a different hat on. I'll put a different hat on to change my vocabulary and the concepts that I'm working with, because I work under, the core energy philosophies of Dr. Bruce Schneider that talks about how your energy presents itself. And that works well for teenagers and above, right? But it's not necessarily going to work so well with, a younger person in that 8, 9, 10 range, right? Excuse me. So I work with children of a wide range of ages, right? But like they come because the message of Outcome Elite has either been spread via mouth to mouth, or at a show I was at or something, and it just talks about, hey, do you see? Would you like to see your student or student athlete step into their confidence? Would you like to see them with more confidence? Would you like to see them with sustainable confidence that doesn't rely upon external validation from others, right? And if I go back to my statement about Rick, me being the ideal client, right? I became the ideal client because I spent a vast majority of my life not having my own sustainable confidence.
Hmm.
I would rely on external validation from colleagues, from friends, from spouse, right? And that's a temporary fix, right? Hey, great job, Ben. You did perfect. Or, hey, you're amazing at this. That only lasts for a little while until you need it again, right? By identifying your authenticity and your true self about who you are, right, you can have sustainable confidence that exists whether or not people are validating you or not. And my journey now is, hey, I want to talk to kids about this because I didn't learn it till I was 40,
Mm.
you know? And if
Right.
I can start planting that seed now, whether you
Right.
get it now at 12, 16, 18, maybe it impacts you when you're 25 or 30, but we start this conversation earlier in the process. You mentioned Orange County, right? So, I mean, I can see a kid right now who's playing school sports, club sports, has a strength and conditioning coach, a stretching coach, a physical therapy coach, right? I bet none of them have a mental strength leadership coach.
Right.
Right. I mean, not
Right.
none of them, because obviously I have some clients, but like that's the new thing.
Right.
That's the
You're in
new
it.
thing that I want to make normal, right?
Right.
Is
Yeah.
that, hey, if you talk to any elite athlete right now, they're going to tell you how important the mental aspect
Oh
of their
my.
success is.
Right.
Right. I mean, I have a book on my desk right here from Trevor Mawad, who was Russell Wilson's mental strength coach when he was quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks, now Denver, right? I
Mhm.
mean, and they talk about how they need what this mental strength does for them in terms of their potential, their fulfillment, their performance, right? We just need to start banging those lessons and talking about it, so it's
Right.
not so strange these days.
I think you're very. You can't see it, but on my wall I have a quote from Henry Ford that says, "Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right."
That's
And
right.
the work on the mental approach and the mental attitude is so powerful, but it can be often neglected. You mentioned earlier you have a lot of people in your life who are giving you insight and experience. So I'm just wondering if you could maybe share with us, where are you going to get other entrepreneurs who have insights and experiences that are helping you to really build a model that you'll be able to scale successfully into the future?
Yeah, really, really a great question, right? So, I mean, like, it's always great, even though I kind of badmouth social media a little bit
Hmm.
earlier because it wasn't necessarily producing results that you're looking for from a revenue generation standpoint. What LinkedIn has done for me has put me in a community where I have found others of the like, right?
Mhm.
And I truly believe that participating and being involved with LinkedIn and putting out the appropriate energy that's authentic with me and who I am, that I am going to attract those type of people back. And I've had some people who have just reached out willing to help me. Right. And then others are entrepreneurs, Rick, that like I met 2 years ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago, but I wasn't in the space where I
Right.
was in a place to, have any value on what they were doing or what they said. So now I reach back and right, and start asking maybe some of these silly questions like, how do I start this thing? Right. Or in your mind, how do we start to scale? Right. And in a personal coaching business, the scaling would look like going from single one-to-one coaching sessions to one-to-many.
Mhm.
Right. Right. So like, for example, I mean, I mentioned Michelle Krebs, my previous executive coach and mentor, right? She has her own coaching company and I reach out to her for insight. I reach out to her for frustrations. I even reached out to another mental athletic coach who has been doing it for a little bit longer than me via LinkedIn, I think, or maybe it was Facebook. And I was like, hey, can I talk to you?
Sure.
And people are willing to help.
Yes.
They are, man. I
That's
mean, like,
generally the case.
you think it's silly, but like I hope somebody watches this, right? Or
Mhm.
sees this or is watching and be like, you know what? I'm scared to do that thing, right? I'm petrified of being, in an entrepreneur type space, right? But I see Ben was feeling the same way, right? And now he's worked through it. I can do it too.
Right. So let's talk about the future. You might have hinted there a little bit with the one to many, but you entrepreneurs have a big, bright vision for what tomorrow is going to be. What is yours for your firm? Where do you want to take Outcome Elite?
Yeah, Outcome Elite the vision is gonna be a brand in of itself, right? It's gonna be a team, Rick. It's gonna be a community, right? So my clients right now get a tote bag, a t-shirt, a wristband, and it's going to be a place where student athletes can go, whether it be in a Facebook group or maybe I'm gonna have a retreat somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And learn from each other, lean on each other, right? It's going to be a place where people are saying, hey, you know what? I'm part of the Outcome Elite team, and mental strength and good energy and overcoming fear and doubt are part of my overall fulfillment as a person, right? And I'm proud to be a part of it. So the message is going to be, like you said, like I said earlier, going from individual sessions to one to many, whether it's going to be speaking engagements, i.e. TEDx, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's going to go from where it is regionally now to a national place where Outcome Elite is going to be a name that is known where, hey, you know what? Mental strength training that goes from one end of the spectrum, what might be somebody who's having severe anxiety issues and just wants to have fun playing a sport or make new friends, right? To somebody who's an elite level athlete who wants to just pull every ounce of potential they have out of themselves, right? To get that Division I scholarship or to be successful in making their ways to a professional level. And that eventually will include at some point, I'm guessing, like a lot of entrepreneurs, Rick, a book, right? A book that sort of tells this story, and says,
Exactly.
hey, this person is like me. Ben has struggled with mental health issues, and Ben has struggled with, living this avatar that he thought he was supposed to be. And now how he's learned how to live with that and then thrive in it. Let's teach other people, right? And
Very,
that's what the book and everything will be about.
very powerful. So if someone would like to connect with you, Ben, maybe on LinkedIn or learn more about your firm, where would you advise them to go?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, obviously, we refer to LinkedIn. Great place for peers, right? Who maybe want to take that first step, or again, they're where I am right now, a year and change in, right? Or even somebody who's got a lot of experience that happened to catch this and be like, hey, I can help that guy. Just message me on LinkedIn for sure, right? It's a wonderful tool. And then the signal or the sign on for Instagram is outcome_elite, right? And there you'll see a lot of videos and a lot of content, a lot of posts where you can get a better idea of what we're doing. And then last but not least, you can contact me via my website, because my email is really easy. It's just ben@outcomeelite.com, right? And I'm happy to talk to anybody who is interested in learning more or wants him to answer more questions for them.
Well, I appreciate you being on the show and sharing your entrepreneurial journey with my audience, Ben.
Well, it has been a pleasure. I get excited and I get emotional every time I get a chance to talk about it and kind of spread this message. And I thank you for the opportunity, Rick.
You're welcome. I'd like to thank the audience too. You've been a part of Orange County's longest running business talk show. Ben's episode was episode number 1384 in our catalog. If you're an Orange County entrepreneur and you would like to tell your story like Ben just did, then connect with me on LinkedIn. Reach out to me. I'm Rick, R-I-C, Franzi, F-R-A-N-Z-I. Or you can visit my website, same thing, rickfranzi.com. Be happy to talk to you, maybe get you on our show. And until the next time we all have a chance to be together, I hope all of your business decisions will move your company in a positive direction.